Hello, welcome to another book review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I am reviewing the YA fantasy book, House of Night, Revealed, by PC and Kristen Cast. In case you're interested in reading this book afterward, content warnings are blood, violence, vomit, ableism, racism, exotification, slurs, sexism, transphobia, murder, sexual assault, abuse, sex shaming, lesbophobia, gore, and homophobia. For this review, I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally the characters. There will also be spoilers in this review. Let's begin. The plot for the online version of this book is as follows. Drastically altered after her fall at the end of Hidden, Nefret is now more dangerous than ever, and her quest for vengeance will wreak havoc on humans as well as Zoe and her friends. Chaos is loose in Tusala, and the House of Night is blamed. Can Zoe stop Nefret in time to keep her anger from escalating to a full-on war, or will someone else have to step in to take the fall? Unfortunately, the summary of the book was rather misleading. The biggest action Nefret committed was murdering Charles Lafont and Aaron. Other than that, she hid underground for a majority of the novel, not causing any havoc at all. Instead, a massive portion of the book revolved around boy drama and an execution, which I'll get to later. For most of the novel, Zoe was torn between her feelings toward Aurochs and Stark. At this point, the love triangle felt so stale, and I just wanted it to end. Worse, even though Zoe was insisting that Aurochs and her were only friends, Stark continued to act possessive and jealous, due to convincing himself that Zoe would love Aurochs more than him. When the plot finally got going, 80% into the book, it was extremely rushed, and most points seemed to come out of nowhere. This book has zero world building. No new concepts are introduced or explored. There is a small subplot involving Zoe's Seer Stone, but that's old news at this point. As per usual, Zoe mopes and whines throughout the entire book, while never actually trying to solve her problem. She constantly bemoans how to handle the issue around Aurochs, instead of simply going up and talking with him for 5 minutes about how she doesn't want a relationship with him. Zoe does stand up to Stark at one point, who is being overly possessive, but given Zoe's track record of her willingness to openly cheat on partners, as seen in multiple books, the scene feels hollow. Furthermore, when everyone is worried how the Seer Stone is changing Zoe into a more angry, hateful person, there's not that much of a difference. I'm not kidding, in that Zoe supposedly being angry and off the rails still feels like the same Zoe the reader has gotten throughout the entire series. The detail that made me quite angry, though, was how the book ended. After running into 2 people in the park, Zoe almost murders them and later turns herself in the final chapter. However, in book 2 of the series, Zoe coldly committed manslaughter and felt nothing of it, and no one, not even Zoe, brings that up. Not surprising to anyone, Stark was awful and actually made me hate him more than I already do. He was constantly jealous about Zoe even talking or looking at Aurochs, despite Zoe stating over and over that she had no romantic intentions. I know that Zoe's track record hasn't been the best in the past, but trust needs to go both ways to make a relationship work. For the entire book, I was just hoping that they would break up, because Zoe and Stark are clearly awful together. Worse, when Zoe finally tells Stark to back off, instead of apologizing, Stark plays the victim card and makes Zoe feel bad about him being butthurt. And this is after Stark said he would tolerate Zoe being with other men over and over again. Aphrodite does get a small role in this book. She asked Shaylin to keep track of Zoe's aura, as Aphrodite received a vision about Zoe murdering 2 people out of anger. However, Aphrodite was also extremely ableist in this book. Although that is sadly not out of the ordinary for a character in the House of Night series, the authors really cranked up to 11 with this one. after that he constantly calls Shaylin slurs to her face and refuses to even acknowledge Shaylin as a person by constantly calling her it. As a character, Phantos was okay at first. She was a somewhat decent high priestess, although she often let Zoe and co. get away with too much. However, this book made me hate her due to the execution scene. For context, in this book, Dallas tries to murder Stevie Ray by burning her alive in the sunlight. After Dallas is caught, all the students and teachers are called to an assembly. However, instead of getting a fair trial or even a lawyer, Phantos just calls forward all the eyewitnesses, all of whom happen to be Stevie Ray's friends. After Dallas pleads guilty, Zoe and co. agree that he and anyone associated with Dallas should be punished. So Kelowna beheads Dallas in front of all the students and takes 2 of Dallas's friends off into the wilderness so they can reject the change. However, I have 3 huge issues with this scene. For one, no one is actually told what the punishment is before they agree to the execution. Those who stood by Dallas merely thought they were going to get kicked out of school, not killed. Secondly, there was no fair trial. Dallas was merely accused of a crime, and Zoe and co. got to act as key witnesses, judge, and jury. This basically tells the others that if Zoe or her friends don't like him, Zoe can falsely accuse said person of a crime, and there is no way for that person to not be punished. In other words, the others have to be nice to Zoe or risk being killed. It's a wildly corrupt system. Finally, beheading someone without warning has to be wildly traumatizing to all the students, and no one calls Santos out on her actions. Instead, she is seen as a wise leader who should be loved by all. Nefret was extremely weak throughout the book. Although the beginning and ending scenes of her committing murder was great, I was begging her to do something throughout the entire book. Instead, she simply slept through her point of view chapters and conveniently dreamed of her entire backstory. Establishing a backstory for an antagonist is fine, but 11 books in is way too late and felt mostly like filler. Overall, I give this book 1 star. It was a massive chore to get through, being mostly fluff and filler. Thankfully, there's only 1 more book after this.